Join Allstate working in local communities all across America to amplify the positive, increase trust, and accept people's imperfections and differences. Together, we win.
That was Allstate CEO Tom Wilson, who has managed to infuriate some on the right over a message that he put out during the Super Bowl, or not, I'm sorry, the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans this year. So why don't we include a little more context and then we'll try to figure out why people are so upset with him.
Welcome to the Allstate Sugar Bowl. Wednesday, tragedy struck the New Orleans community. Our prayers are with the victims and their families. We also need to be stronger together by overcoming an addiction to divisiveness and negativity. Join Allstate working in local communities all across America to amplify the positive, increase trust, and accept people's imperfections and differences. Together, we win.
Look, before we get to the right wing and their criticism, I want to discuss this with you, Cenk, okay? Person to person, one-on-one. I don't know why he felt the need to do this, because no one cares what you have to say about this matter at all, okay? What are you gonna do to lower our insurance prices because they're astronomical right now? Unless you're addressing that, I don't really care to hear from Tom Wilson. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, they must have been the sponsor of the Sugar Bowl, so that's why they took the opportunity to talk. And so they probably viewed it as an ad that brings people together, but they didn't realize that after a terrorist attack, talking about divisiveness, et cetera, is probably not the right way to go. Like, I appreciate that he was trying to cool the temperature, and so I don't want to get on him for trying to do that when I think he had the right intent. But let's also be clear that the point of that video was just so that more people will talk about Allstate. And well, oops, mission accomplished. Okay, right?
True, yeah, mission accomplished.
And you'll get to the right-wing critique. And in this case, they're way too heated as usual over relatively benign comments. But I understand where they're coming from. It's not out of left field.
Okay, so before we get to the first example of a right-winger who's upset with this message, I should have looked this up beforehand. I just didn't care enough to do so. I'm being totally honest with the audience. What is the Sugar Bowl? What happens in the Sugar Bowl? Is it more interesting and delicious compared to the Super Bowl?
No, the Sugar Bowl is one of the many bowls that college football has. So now it gets more intricate and boring, so I'll skip all the details.
Thank God, thank you.
The bottom line now is that it's part of the college playoff, so it was a really important game. And so, and everybody was looking forward to the game, and then it got delayed because of the terrorist attack, and then they come out and do this statement, and then everybody wanted the game to come back on, and it did. And
okay.
Again, it got just delayed a little bit.
Okay, we're moving on. Let's start with Outkick's Clay Travis, who had this to say about CEO Tom Wilson's message.
The idiot CEO of Allstate, Tom Wilson. Now, I understand Allstate, like all of companies, has a variety of employees of a variety of different backgrounds. But if you all care about anything at all, you should fire this moron. Because before the Sugar Bowl started, this moron, Tom Wilson, he said that we had to combat divisiveness and negativity and acknowledge our imperfections. And he said that after an ISIS terror attack on Bourbon Street that killed 14 people. Nobody's got to apologize for divisiveness or negativity or imperfection. It wasn't imperfection that caused this terror attack. It was hate and it was evil and it should be condemned utterly.
I mean, I agree with pretty much everything he said. I thought he was going to devolve into Muslims are evil and, the Islamophobic garbage that I do not agree with. But everything he said there, I mean, I don't really take any issue with it. I mean, ironically, he's responding to Tom Wilson's message with, I guess you could say divisiveness, but he's right. I mean, the Wilson's message didn't make any sense in this context at all. It seemed like he wanted to put some lectury, feel good message out there, but it did not go along with the incident that he's referencing.
Yeah, the reason why, like, I'm not at all being harsh about it is twofold. One, I think he had good intent. I think what they were trying to say is, don't hate Muslims after this. It's just one rando dude, right? Maybe you hate the terrorism, but don't hate the individuals. And all Muslims didn't do it. But he can't say that, right? Because that's too on the point, on the nose. So he chose to say it in a way that didn't make any sense, because acknowledging our imperfections. Why did we get bombed because of our imperfections? No, that had nothing to do with it, right? It was a deranged guy. And by the way, he's absolutely right. It has nothing to do with Muslims. If you're saying, no way, it's Muslims that are all of them are responsible. Well, a right winger did the terrorist act in Las Vegas that blew up the Tesla Cybertruck. Huge Trump fan. Are all right wingers responsible? Should they all apologize on behalf of the entire right wing? Of course not. And that guy doesn't represent the entire right wing. This guy doesn't represent all Muslims. Obviously, they both have significant mental problems. But the way that he said it is a tiny bit weird, right? Because one, imperfections, and then the talk of divisiveness and negativity, but that didn't lead to the bombing. It's what you want to prevent after the bombing, right? So that's why it comes across as awkward. But I don't agree with Clay Travis there when he says he should be fired.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, fire him over this. Like a slightly awkward way of phrasing something that had generally good intent. No, you don't fire him over that. That's crazy. Look, guys, the problem with the right wing at this point, and when they do stuff like this, is that ironically, they're doing cancel culture. They're like, oh, now we're in charge. We want to fire everybody. Fire anyone who disagrees with it. Oh, you said divisive when you shouldn't have said divisive? Fire, cancel them. And they're like, okay, now they're like, cancel Allstate and go to other insurance companies. Guys, stop it. This is silly, utterly silly, and it's definitely cancel culture.
I mean, if the rates are better at a different insurance company, then go for it. But to do it over
they're not
this
better
message,
at Allstate? We have no idea.
We have no idea. Yeah, exactly. But to do it over this message is, I think, a little ridiculous. So Charlie Kirk is another one of these right wingers who did not like what Wilson had to say, writing, a jihadist killed and maimed dozens of innocent Americans in a hate-fueled rampage. And the CEO of Allstate thinks Americans watching the Sugar Bowl need a lecture from him on overcoming an addiction to divisiveness and negativity. Absolutely not. Yeah, I think what triggered some folks, and I can understand why, is the use of the word addiction in this context, like kind of spitting in the face of Americans and criticizing them for having an addiction to divisiveness, when I don't think Americans have an addiction to divisiveness. And to repeat the point again, I don't think what happened in New Orleans is an example of someone who's doing something because of a culture of divisiveness that we have in America. So I just, look, I'm not as active on social media these days, so I might be unaware of something that you're noticing, Cenk. So I am curious, because I do remember the pre-Trump era, during the tail end of the Obama administration, when there were a lot of terrorist attacks carried out by, extremists. And the reaction from the right wing, generally speaking, was Islamophobic. Like, there was a lot of Islamophobic garbage out there during that time, but I'm not noticing the same cultural phenomena today. Have you noticed a similar thing kind of reemerging as a result of what happened in New Orleans?
You're pointing out a really interesting phenomenon, because do I see some of it? Of course, right? You go on X and you're going to say, oh, all you Muslims did it, blah, 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 right? But I think you're right, and this is really anecdotal, so take it with a grain of salt. But I've seen less Islamophobia these days than I did in the past, for whatever it's worth. And tons of right wingers follow me. So if there was more, I presumably would have seen it more. But it comes with a giant but, which is that it's been redirected towards immigrants in large, and so that's why the Allstate guys thing could be directed at Trump and what he said after the incident. And that might be why the right wing caught extra feelings over it, because the bombing itself had nothing to do with an addiction to divisiveness. But right afterwards, Trump came out and said, oh, it's the immigrants coming across the border, when this guy's a native born American, born and raised in Texas, right?
Right.
So Trump just made that up. And why? because he wants to drive hatred and divisiveness towards immigrants.
Yeah.
And so keep it real.
And as a reminder, so the man that we're talking about here, who carried out this terror attack in New Orleans, did plant 2 separate active bombs that luckily the authorities found and dealt with without incident. But after he had done that, he ran his truck through a crowd of people, effectively killing 14 and injuring dozens of others. And so, in response to, again, Allstate CEO Wilson's message, Brett Favre had an interesting take. He said, "I heard there was no televised national anthem for Sugar Bowl yesterday. Instead, a DEI message by Allstate CEO, woke is a joke." Okay, I get that now DEI is like the label that some are slapping onto everything, even when it makes no sense. But if we're gonna be critical of Wilson's message because it doesn't really apply to the terror attack in New Orleans, let's be critical of Brett Favre for slapping the DEI label on a story that has nothing to do with DEI. In fact, according to a fact check by Newsweek, before the game, the national anthem was in fact played, as is customary at US sporting events. And there was also a moment of silence observed. However, neither of those, 2 events were broadcasted on ESPN. An ESPN source told Newsweek that SportsCenter interviewed former NFL quarterback Tim Tebow before cutting to a commercial break as the moment of silence began. Once the broadcast resumed after the break, it was in the middle of the national anthem, and ESPN chose not to broadcast that at that point, as it would have been awkward, the source said. So the Allstate clip was not played in lieu of the national anthem or in lieu of a moment of silence. Allstate, by the way, did end up taking the video down from X. It is still available on YouTube though. And the company clarified the sentiment that Wilson was at least attempting to make, according to them. To be clear, Allstate CEO Tom Wilson unequivocally condemns this heinous act of terrorism and violence in all forms. "We stand with the families of the victims, their loved ones, and the community of New Orleans. The reference to overcoming divisiveness and negativity reflects a broader commitment to fostering trust and positivity in communities across the nation." Cenk.
Yeah. So look, right-wing populists, you got to get better at this, right? Like the constant spreading of lies and misinformation and the right-wing falling for it every time is so annoying. So Brett Favre says there was no national anthem. Everybody instantly believes it. Nobody double checks. Nobody actually bothers to see if it's true or not true. Trump says that it was an immigrant that crossed the border recently. Nobody bothers to check. Not remotely true, just totally made up. Now, to be fair, not totally made up. Fox News said the car had crossed the border recently. What they didn't check was that it was a rental and the guy lived in Texas his whole life, okay? So, but Fox News, to their credit, actually came back and corrected that error. Trump did not, he doubled down. And tons of right-wingers are doubling down and calling him an immigrant, et cetera, when he's not. And Brett Favre, of course, goes after woke, is because he's like a really ideological right winger? No, he's a guy who got caught redirecting money that was supposed to go to the government, money that was supposed to go to the poor, into his own pocket and in his own interests. So he's kind of a crook who decided, oh, the crooks are in the Republican Party, so let me go hide out there, and that way I'll get to be above the law. So I got no interest in that crook Brett Favre and what he thinks. And by the way, brother, try not throwing interceptions. How about that?
Totally.
Okay. Anyways,
agreed.
So
is he still in the NFL?
No. He retired after throwing approximately 2.5 million interceptions and claiming to be a great quarterback. Okay.
Right.
All right. One last thing on the actual terrorist act. So no one does more damage to Muslims in America and across the world than these a-hole terrorists. The worst of the worst, right? So you go and kill all those poor innocent people, and for what? What, you think you're gonna win the war against America? You dumbass, you ridiculous, like homicidal maniac. And so what does it do in reality? Does it like terrorize Americans? No, we terrorize ourselves so much with mass shootings that these things are barely a blip, right? all it does is it terrorizes Muslim Americans because it makes everyone hate us. Like, it's the most anti-Muslim thing you could possibly do, to do a terrorist attack inside the US if you call yourself Muslim. And you get other Muslims killed, you get randomly Hindus killed who are wearing anything on their head, right? And you get more and more people killed, let alone the poor innocent people that you murdered, right? So it's just the dumbest strategy in the world. And I know they're all mentally deranged, but like his point was, oh my God, America's killing innocent Muslims abroad. And so I will combat that by killing innocent Americans here. How does that combat it? It doesn't combat it at all. It just has more innocent people die. So I loathe these terrorists, but there's a way to fight back against them without lying and without being weirdly discriminatory.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.